America for $5 off each coin. That's TrumpCoin2020.com.
From the Herteen and Stalker Studios in the heart of the Hawkeye Nation, this is the mighty 1630 KCJJ, Iowa City.
Herteen and Stalker Jewelers, making memories, making moments.
With a look at your forecast, I'm meteorologist Ashley O'Connor. Partly cloudy skies today with a light north breeze. Highs this afternoon will reach the low 80s. Clear skies this evening with lows tonight falling to the low 60s. Patchy fog is possible first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, sunshine with highs in the upper 80s. It'll be hot this weekend with plenty of sun. Highs on Saturday will be in the low 90s with mid-90s looking likely on Sunday. The steamy weather continues into next week. That's weather on the mighty 1630 KCJJ. Currently, it's 76.
Weather brought to you by the Westport Touchless Auto Washes at Walmart in Iowa City. Coralville's Hy-Vee. We are awaiting a call from Denny Laine. We just went back on YouTube. We tried to get back earlier on YouTube, and somehow...
Well, he's out of Vegas, so it's about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I was looking at his tour schedule, and it looks like he comes in and does these and then just goes home. He doesn't, stay out on tour for an extended period of time.
Now he's going to be...
at the Redstone Room in Davenport a week from Saturday.
Okay.
Where's the Redstone Room?
Down at the River Music Experience downtown.
Uh-huh. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been there. Is it a nice venue?
It's a nice room, absolutely. He's a good guy. Played with just about everybody. Obviously, co-founded Wings. That'd be interesting to ask him about how that came about.
Yeah. And Moody Blues. What happened, why he left.
They came at me with this Tuesday afternoon crap, and I said, goodbye.
Is that what he left?
Well, I think so. I mean,
they
put out that first album that he was on, and then that was it.
That was on London Record, wasn't it?
It was.
I remember. I have the 45 at home.
Well, you can share that when he calls.
I love that song, Go Now.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah,
I love the piano riff in the middle, the bridge. That's cool.
But then when they came out with other stuff, it didn't...
Yeah, it's like, who are these guys?
Yeah. The Moody Blues, were you with the station when we brought the Moody Blues in?
Yeah, it was one of the first shows at that venue.
Yeah. And I look at these guys, and I swear to God, I'm in my 40s and everything, they were wearing leisure suits. Yeah. And I go, what is this, a four freshmen? I mean, I did. I didn't know what to make of them. I mean, they were great on stage, but they were wearing these bright blue leisure suits with the ruffled shirts and.
Yeah, being a musician doesn't necessarily predicate you being a fashion icon either.
No,
no, and they
for sure.
And they were. What were they then? They were, in their 50s?
Yeah.
They were older than I was, But, I'd go, wow.
Well, Rob Spiewak is a huge Moody Blues fan.
I like him. I like him a lot. I don't know huge or anything, but I do like him.
I don't think of much of...
I mean, their vocals are great. And they sounded like they're...
Oh, yeah.
When they did the concert, the sound was excellent, and they sounded just like the songs. So, hello.
Hello?
Yes.
It's Pat.
Hey, Pat.
Am I on the air?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was listening to you guys and figured you needed some help, so I figured I'd call in. Captain, did you see on my Twitter thing some president from a bank in Wisconsin reached out and said he can't listen to our podcast anymore because all we do is talk about Donald Trump?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you
I
don't
thought
have
you
to.
guys would find that. He said that he's living in our head, that the podcast has just turned into nothing but a Trump.
Yeah. Well, I got to get the other line because it's our call.
Oh.
But, tell him to buzz off. We don't care.
I figured I'd just let you guys know.
All right. Thank you.
Lang's talking to him.
Okay. Here he is. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is this Denny Laine?
It is.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. So, are you in Vegas right now? So it's 8 in the morning.
No. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're about to have lunch.
We don't do that in the music business.
Well, it's sure a pleasure to have you call in and talk to us this morning. When you I think you did your first live performance when you were 12, and when that happened, did you ever dream that you would reach the heights that you have?
I don't think anybody could sort of predict that kind of thing. I mean, I certainly had the ambition that I wanted to do something with my life. I knew what I wanted to do. A lot of people don't know what they want to do. I feel sorry for people like that. But, once you know what, and I was encouraged by my parents, don't forget. So after the war, everybody was, just get out there and get a job and do what you got to do. So I had it good from that point of view, and I did come from a sort of semi-musical family. So, I suppose one thing led to another, and I just hung in there.
Well, you were the first generation in the United Kingdom that didn't have to sign up for national service. So you guys, you guys
missed that.
Yep. So that was a big thing, and that's one of the reasons that the British invasion became so prevalent, because all you guys had a chance to do all that stuff.
That's exactly right. And you know what, the weird part about it is that we ended up going to, a lot of the bands did, especially the Beatles and a couple of the Moody Blues guys, ended up going to Germany to play for the American troops in Germany because, that was the peacekeeping troops. So that's where we got all our music through their network, Radio Luxembourg. And we got all the American music through that channel. And that's when we were influenced by it and changed it around, brought it back. So it's one big circle, really.
They were recruiting. In fact, I was one of the. I'm really old. I'm 70. They were recruiting disc jockeys, American disc jockeys, to go to Radio Luxembourg, and
that's right.
I was one that they recruited.
Really, I knew a few of them. Emperor Roscoe and what else is now? I forget what his name was, but I knew a few of those people. Yeah, because they all hung out in London. It was a big scene. All the DJs, all the musicians, everybody, all the journalists, all the clothes people. It was a big scene in London at the time. So a lot of those people came over.
Danny, what made you pick up the guitar? Why didn't you pick up the piano or something else? What is it that attracted you to the guitar?
Well, I mean, I was interested in jazz music as a kid, to gypsy jazz music, because my father does have some gypsy roots going back, Roma roots, and so I don't know why, I just liked gypsy jazz music, so I wanted a guitar, but I did there was a ukulele in the cupboard, and there was a piano in the house, which my mother used to play. So I did already have some idea of about music. But when I got a guitar, I just kind of tuned it myself. And, I listened to folk songs a lot. And skiffle was coming out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that skiffle was basically, American bluegrass, converted into Irish music. A guy called Lonnie Donegan was big at the time. Mm-hmm. And he was the big skiffle king. And so we used to play all that stuff, very simple stuff. So I got out of the jazz thing more into that, and then more into rock and roll. Well, blues, really. I was into jazz, blues. That was my first roots. And then I went into skiffle. And then when I was 12 is when I performed, that skiffle song, actually, a Lonnie Donegan song at this Birmingham Institute. My parents were in the audience and all that stuff. So, yeah, I kind of progressed into other forms of music as I got older, and I was in various bands in school, so whatever band I would be joining or I was invited to join, that style is what I learned to play. I was kind of a session man in a way to start with, if you like.
One of the songs that you played with Wings has kind of an iconic guitar riff in it that I just loved. "Let Me Roll It." Is that one of your riffs, or was that one that Paul came up with?
No, it's not. It's Paul's. but we both played it on the record.
Yeah.
Doubled up. No, it's Paul's. Most of those riffs you're going to find are Paul's, because when he's writing the song, he's writing the song around a riff. It's the same with Band on the Run. But Band on the Run intro was modelled after a song called Tragedy, which we used to jam on, as in the studio or wherever, because we just liked the song. So we started off with that, and then that riff came from that song to a certain degree, anyway.
So when you let's go backwards a little bit. How did you begin with the Moody Blues?
Well, I just was saying about the two of the Moody Blues were in Germany, and they were out there at the same clubs that the Beatles were playing at. And they had their visas revoked, so they came back to England to recruit a band to go back to Germany, because that's where all the work was, in Europe. To play for all the sailors and all the army people, or the forces. So they asked me to join to do that because they knew I wasn't happy with my band, because my band didn't want to turn professional. So I said, okay, and I left my band because of that. But the drummer in my band at the time, or our band, was Bev Bevan, who went on to do great things with ELO. So, he had the ambition too, and he didn't want to have a day job. And so that was it. So to become a professional, I joined up with the other two guys from the Moody Blues, Ray Thomas and Mike Pinder.
And how long were you with them?
Well, at least 3 years. People say 2 years, but at least 3 years, because my insistence was I didn't want to play pop music. You see, the whole thing about going to Germany was you had to play songs that people knew. And a lot of the Liverpool bands were doing just that, but it was kind of R&B stuff as well. It was a mixture. And it was to make people dance, and you're playing to a lot of the people who wanted entertaining. So you learned a lot of songs, Well, basically, most of the Moody Blues, that's why it's called the Moody Blues, was a blues band. So for the first year, we were playing in a blues club, a residency, and then we got discovered and taken down to London. And we were getting a lot of records out of a DJ in New York sent to us. And that's when we picked a few of those songs to add to our set, So we went from straight blues into, I don't know, progressive blues. Donovan called it progressive blues. He did the sleeve notes on that first album. So that's what we kind of morphed into.
So were you happy when it went top 40?
When what?
Because you said you didn't. Well, you said you didn't want to play, pop hits, and then they became pop hits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pop means you become popular, but the music at the time, which was popular, was chart stuff. But when you're doing your own thing and you're writing and doing your own, recording your own stuff, it becomes popular. I mean, it's not based on trying to be popular, if you know what I mean. You're just doing your own thing, and then, of course, because of Paul's fame, I mean, how could you not, get somewhere with it? Because, I mean, he was known, he was bigger than everybody, really. So, it had to be successful. It had to be good, It had to be different. You can't follow the Beatles or the Moody Blues. You've got to do your own thing. And that's what we did.
So how is it that you got hooked up with Paul McCartney? And, did he meet you at a club, or did he pick up the phone and say, hey, this is Paul McCartney, you want to get together and form a band?
Well, he did do that, yeah, but he already knew me. See, because we'd known the Beatles right from the early days, as I said. Moody's are in Germany. They was doing the Star Club, same as the Beatles. I think the Beatles might have come after that, I'm not sure, or before it. But anyway, they were in the same setup. Everybody knew everybody in those days. We all played the same venues. And we knew Paul. I knew Paul more than them because I used to hang around in London more. So we used to go out a lot together. We'd go and see a lot of the American people that came over. Jimi Hendrix. We'd go and see whoever was in town, the Byrds, Dylan. And, you know, we'd kind of get to know those people just by being in the clubs. So, and then the Moody's knew of the Beatles, you know, because we went on tour with them. They asked us to do their tour. And then we became friends, like neighbours, really. And we used to have a few parties, and they would come to them. So I already knew Paul really well. And he'd seen me play, actually, on that Jimi Hendrix show with my own band. I had a band called a string band, electric string band. And he saw me do that show. And I got a lot of compliments about that. But it was kind of, you know, the idea was a little bit like what George Martin was doing with the Beatles. It was like classical mixed with rock, folk rock. And so he liked what he saw. And, you know, after the Ginger Baker thing fell apart, I was doing nothing at the time. And I was sitting in the office talking to a friend of mine about a deal he was trying to get, Mark Bolan, actually. And we were talking, and the phone rang, and it was Paul. So get up here to Scotland. We've got a job for you if you want it.
And you were in Wings for the entire length of the band's life.
Right.
Now you guys are jamming. You get your band to cut together some new songs and everything. And Paul goes, "Well, we really can't go out and play these huge arenas. We got to tune up." So you guys get in a van and you stop at like these universities and places and turn up at lunchtime and say, "Hey, can we play tonight?" What kind of reaction were you getting from people when you were doing that?
Oh, it was great. I mean, yeah, because it was in that setting. I mean, it wasn't, you know, we weren't being criticised. The press wasn't there. It was all like we turned up and played that night. So a lot of people didn't believe that we were there. So it was just the campus that we would play to. And it was great practice for us because basically we were a little bit chicken about going big time. You can't just go big time. You've got to have somebody to go big with, you know. So we did that as a sort of testing ground for the band. And we only had about 4 or 5 numbers. We just extended them and jammed and did what we did. And, you know, it was a good starter for us. It gave us a little bit of confidence. And then we built it up into doing the European tour. But, it was fun. It was something that, it was a little bit like the old days. A little bit like reliving your youth in a way, you know, but you just turn up at the gig and see they'll take you on. And of course, when they found out it was Paul McCartney in the truck, they did.
So you said you had 4 or 5 tunes to start with that you gigged with. What were some of the songs?
Well, there's some of the stuff off Wildlife. And then there would be, you know, Long Tall Sally and a few rockers that you throw, you know, few rockers, whatever of the time, I don't know, a bit of Buddy Holly, a bit of Little Richard, a bit of Elvis, whatever. And then we had, you know, a few songs that he'd written, and Go Now was another one I used to do.
That's a great song. Love that song.
Was it?
Yeah, so, I mean, we had a little set, but we weren't that well rehearsed, you know. I mean, when you go on the road, well, especially Linda, because she didn't have any experience, so she was really, you know, not happy about that, but we got through it. So, you know, it led to us going and fixing up a tour once the album came out. And we were really promoting the band at its early stage in a very low-key way, that's all.
Was it hard because Linda didn't have any experience and you were experienced, you know, and you're not married? Was it hard dealing with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the word is hard. It was just you can't deal with somebody who hasn't had experience musically. So she didn't play anything anyway. She didn't play. So, you know, the only way she played was a few single notes and a couple of chords, and every now and then on stage that she'd been given to do as part of, you know, a little part. But really her contribution was the vocals. Mm-hmm. And even though she's had bad press and bad, you know, nights with that, not being able to get across on stage too well. But in the studio, she was pretty fast, and she had a strong enough voice that, we got a sound. Her voice was part of that sound. And really, that's what her contribution was. Even Michael Jackson complimented the Wings harmonies, and he said, "Who's that singing?" And he said, "That's Linda and Denny." So there was some value to it, her singing, of course, but she didn't play any instruments at all. She just didn't.
Well, you guys Wings recorded one of my very favorite live albums of all times, your Wings Over America, and I was fortunate enough to see your band at the Cow Palace in San Francisco on that tour, and it was just a great show. Just loved it. Do you have some memories from that tour that you would like to share?
Well, many. It was the first time that we'd really done it on that level. We'd already done, arenas, and Europe we'd done stuff, but we'd never done it with, a brass section, and for such a long time. So the more you do it, the better and tighter you get, the better it gets. And we had a great audience reaction. Obviously, it was always a good reaction from the audience. So we didn't have any problems there. And it was more or less, the same every night. We had the best equipment. We had the Who used to have a company called ML, and they were experimenting with laser lights at the time. So we were the first to go out and use that. We had all sorts of special gear made for us, monitors and all that stuff. So we were ahead of the curve with all of it. So it was a first for everybody, and I think that added to the appeal of it. But it was a tight band, we got good. We got good because we were doing it all the time. And we rehearsed the hell out of it as well. So, it was and we had a lot of songs, don't forget. We'd already had quite a few hits by then. So it was enormous, really. It should have gone to Japan if but we got, the first time we got to Japan, our visas were revoked from previous marijuana deals that we got caught with, and then me and Paul. And then the next time we went with the other band, unfortunately, that tour should have gone to Japan. It would have been great to go to Japan, but then 5 years later, of course, we go in with a new lineup, and Paul gets busted again. So that was the end of that.
Yeah. What ended Wings? Why did you decide to call it quits?
That ended Wings. Because it meant, we can't tour now. So really, what do? So what happened was me and Paul decided to go in the studio anyway. He came up with a new concept for a new album. And we started bringing in guests, Stevie Wonder, Ringo, Carl Perkins, Steve Gadd, Stanley Clarke. And we all went to Montserrat, which was Air Studios, George Martin and Jeff Emmerich's studio. And we recorded with those guys. So then it wasn't really a Wings album. But I was on that album, and I was on the Tug of War thing as well, and Types of Peace. So it's like we were still together, but we weren't calling ourselves Wings at that time, because Wings had kind of gone off the road because of that bust. And to go on the road, it would have taken a couple of years before you could get all the visas in line again. They slap you on the wrist and say, naughty boy, and they don't give you the visas because of that. So we're basically back into the studio. And I personally was just trying to do something else. I wanted to go on the road. And I wanted to promote some of my own songs. I'd started to put out solo albums myself. And that's what I did, because, it was great. We never fell out or anything. I just said, I want to go and do something else, But there were a few things that, went down. It's just like anything else. When something, with the Beatles, look at them. Look what happened with them.
Yeah.
Same thing. They all broke up because, it starts to get to the point where what do you do next, So you all get a little bit like, after you go off the road and you start retiring a little bit, and then basically it's hard to get yourself back into doing it again. So,
well, it's probably a little easier for you to tour now. It's just you and your guitars out on stage.
Well, that is one part of it. But I do have a band, and I go out and do the Band on the Run album and the first Moody Blues album is one show I do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And they call that the Moody Wing Band. Can you believe it? It wasn't my idea, but I thought it was a good name. So. And then I've got this trio thing that I'm doing as well, based out of Florida with some musicians. Well, you know. So anyway, I've got 3 different shows that I do at the moment, or 4, because with the same Moody Wing Band, we don't just do that show. We do a show of all other material as well. But anyway, I'm pretty busy doing that and mixing it around because I don't like doing just one thing. You know, solo thing is fun though, really. It really is. I enjoy that.
So do you ever perceive a day where you stop touring and just kind of chill out? And...
Chill out. If I stopped touring, I'd be in a box. You know what I mean? You can't not do it because what else are you going to do? And it keeps you fit to a certain degree. We're all lucky we came through it, you know, because, I mean, a lot of people went by the wayside. A lot of my friends,
yeah,
of course, which we won't go into names. But, you know, I mean, it's tough business. And drugs and drink is one of the worst enemy you can have. So you just have to, you know, I've been fairly good with that, but not perfect. I've had bad times, but I've never really been into anything that heavily. But as I say, you know, that's the one thing you've got to watch in this business is the endurance isn't there. And for a lot of those people, it just fizzled out, you know, they burnt out. So you just got to keep yourself fit. But the thing about recording and going live is you get a good balance. And it's, you know, you got to be fit. So you got to be able to, you know, keep your body in shape and stuff. All that stuff.
Do you have any favorite songs that you have either written or performed with Wings or Moody Blue? Do you have any favorites that you particularly still really enjoy performing?
Well, you know, I mean, I hate the word favorites because it kind of blows out the other stuff as not being as good because to me everything is as good as everything else. It's just favorites becomes because you've played it more because it's been a hit or something, and you know it's like obviously the Band on the Run album would be classed as a favourite for me because I was the only one on it with Paul and Linda. So then there'd be Go Now because obviously that was the #1 hit. Then there'd be songs like I don't know songs I've written with Paul, Mull of Kintyre, No Words, and other stuff. Trying to hide, you know, stuff I've written that's been part of the Wings thing. So, I mean, you could call them favourites, but I don't call them favourites. I just know that those are songs that I do mostly, and therefore, you know, I know them better than other songs.
So, Mull of Kintyre, what was the genesis for that? It kind of has a waltz feel to it.
Yeah. Well, you know, waltzes always sell. You know, when you think about it, what were we? We were just a dance band in the early days. If you didn't make people get up and dance, you didn't get the job. So we had to have all the different tempos off. And once you've done a few rockers, you'd do a couple of waltzes, and then you'd do a couple of shuffles, then you'd do a couple of fast numbers, you know, whatever. So waltz is one of those standard things, you know, in folk music especially. And Mull of Kintyre we were up in Scotland. We knew all the people up there. We were listening to a lot of the music up there. We were very influenced by the environment. And, you know, he came up with that chorus. I went over to breakfast one morning, he already had the chorus. So I kind of see that as his song. But he wasn't sure what to do with it. And I said, well, we should just go together and let's get together and finish it. So we did the next day. We finished it. That's what we did. So then we got the Campbelltown Pipe Band in, and you gave it that authenticity, and away you go. Then it came out at Christmas, and it was huge because of the audience that was watching that clip, and we were on television. So it just went big. What are you going to do?
You know, when I started out in radio, there were 3 songs that triggered me. One was Left Bank with Walk Away Renee. I thought one was Bob Dylan, Can You Please Crawl Out Your Window? And then Moody Blues and Go Now, because they were so freaking different from anything I'd ever heard before.
Well, you know, Go Now, we didn't write that one. So, I mean, that was a steal from Bessie Banks and Larry Banks, who wrote it. But their version was more like a gospel song. You know, it's a gospel song with a sort of, love type of lyric. Lost love lyric. But we had a piano in the band. And that's what made us different to everybody else, more or less, apart from people like Procol Harum and a couple of other people. But anyway, one of the reasons the Beatles liked us is because we weren't trying to sound like the Beatles. Because we had that. It's true. Everybody else is trying to sound like the Beatles, but so we were all influencing each other, and the Beatles were influenced by us, and vice versa as well. So, but that piano is what gave that song, you know, the different sound, really. So there you go. I mean, you know, it was a good song right from the off. I mean, you can always tell a good song, but if you don't do it right, yeah, that's another story. So we put our touch to it and gave it what her version didn't have. Although I love her version more myself, but you know, our version is the one that had a completely different vibe to it. So, you know, it was a huge hit, of course.
Well, I still got I've got the 45, and I played it so much that the vinyl has turned white.
You mean it still works?
Yeah, it still does.
Hey, vinyl's back. So watch out.
Yeah.
I don't think the kids even know it was around before. I think they invented it.
So what can we expect next week in Davenport, Iowa?
Well, you know, I've been doing this on and off for a couple of years, well, about a year, and then in between the band thing. So I've developed it into a situation where I have a lot of songs I can pick from, but mostly it's stuff I've done with Wings and the Moody Blues, obviously, the early stuff, and my own solo stuff. And all I do is I talk as little as I possibly have to about the songs and how they materialized. And obviously that includes a little bit of name dropping. I mean, what can you do? You just get, you know, you got to go with what the story is, and that's it. But people like it, and people in the audience are, I think, more, you know, connected when you're doing a storyteller thing with the music. You know, I've seen Bruce Springsteen do it in England. I've seen various people do it. It's become the norm in a way, the unplugged thing. But at the same time, you know, and then people ask you questions and you answer them. You have a guy on stage with a microphone and all that. But I don't do that. You know, so I just go up there with the guitar and, well, I'm going to develop it and I'll go up there and use a keyboard. I did a couple of days with the keyboard songs as well. And, you know, that's it. You just do it. Hour and a half later, it's over, and most people like it. You always get the one who don't, but he's passed it. He's had it. Yeah. I mean, we talk too much. We want to hear more Moody songs. You know, come on. I mean, you know, why didn't you sing Nights in White Satin? And just for the crack, I do a verse of it just to get back at them, you know, just to wind them up. And then I stop. I say, well, no, I'm not doing that one. And they go, oh! And so things like that, you know. I don't do every hit that Wings had. I don't just get into. And also, I can move the arrangements around when I feel like doing it, however I want to do it. I don't have to do the full song. I can do a bit of a song, that kind of thing. So the more I can change it around and even add a lot of more new stuff, the better it is for me. Yeah, I've got a song that I wrote. It's kind of my take on what's going on with me and Paul, in a sense. The fact that people don't know us as well as we know each other. It's that kind of song, and it's kind of explaining our relationship to a certain degree. It's called Below the Waterline. Not what people see. It's below, beneath all that. The reality is. And that song always goes down really well for some reason because of what its content, And it's brand new. It's never been recorded. Well, it has, but it's never been released. So there you go.
Do you, today's artists, do you have any artists today that you think are really talented or?
Yeah, there's loads, but I don't like the favoritism thing. So I would never sort of put one above the other. And, I know there's a lot of great talent out there. I mean, if you want to look at it from, say, a songwriter's point of view, it's got to be Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
And if you've got to look at, musicians, there's loads of people, who are great musicians, great players, younger blues artists, there's loads of them. But I generally lean towards good players, good people, good writers and good players. I don't listen to the radio that much. If I have the radio on, it's usually jazz or classical. And I do listen to a lot of great guitar players, obviously. I mean, there's the gypsy jazz people and that's it. I mean, I grew up on people like Wes Montgomery and Django Reinhardt and all those kind of, and all the blues people, all the blues players, Albert King and whatever. So I mean, those are the people I still listen to, and that's about it really. But the new stuff, it's all so influenced by that stuff, and they have so much more to pick from now. You can jump on YouTube and get anything you need. So the actual playing, the standard of musicianship is much better than it was when we were kids. We weren't as good in that sense. We didn't have enough to choose from. But, there's so much influence out there now. And also, people are, they're telling their kids to go out and be in the music business, which they weren't in them days. I was lucky. But, a lot of people, they didn't want, in my neck of the woods, everybody wanted their kids to be in the music business because it was a way of making money. But, generally speaking, parents don't want their kids to be in the, lock up your daughters, the musicians are in town. So that's the way it was.
Well, Denny, we really appreciate you joining us this morning, and I just want to personally thank you for all the great music over the years, and I have thoroughly enjoyed listening to your playing, and it's just been great. Right. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. Have
a
great one. I'll see you there, maybe.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you. Bye-bye.
Now, what people don't know about next week, he goes on stage and he tells stories and everything, but his warm-up act is actually Jim Hunter.
I swear to God, I'm coming over there right now, and I'm going to smack you so hard you won't feel it until next week.
Including the stop
Shut
sign
up.
story.
Jesus.
Well, that was fun, guys.
Yeah, it sure was.
He's great. And and if you talk to musicians, real musicians, not these old farts that, say, music's, because I run into so many people my age and they go, I can't listen to the music. Why don't you guys, stay back in the 60s? Here's a guy that does music and is a legendary musician. And given props and saying that the musicians today are actually great musicians that are contributing and actually have better, chances than they did.
Well, they are better because they've had so much to learn from.
Right. Yeah, they're not starting from scratch like he was.
Yeah.
You've got maybe 20 years of recorded music to choose from, and half of it is not in your wheelhouse.
No, that thrilled me that he said that.
Yeah.
Because I've always believed that. I've never been stuck to one my folks listened to top 40 back then. It was Ricky Nelson and Elvis and whatever. Boy, when my mom was 80, right before she died, her two favorite concerts, and she watched them every time they came on HBO, was the Rolling Stones and Bruce Springsteen, and she was 80. And that's the kind of house I grew up in, that they always, we always had top 40 running. We weren't stuck in my dad's, and I had friends that were, that the dads would say, turn that stuff. It wasn't my house.
No, I was particularly lucky because my mother was a wonderful piano player, so I grew up on Gershwin and Cole Porter and all that, while at the same time my sisters and brothers were into, the top 40 stuff now, and the Motown and all that stuff. So I got all of this music, 50 years of popular music,
Yep.
and it was wonderful.
Well, I'm really fortunate to have brothers, yours and Steve's age, so literally from the cradle I heard the Supremes and the Stones and Beatles, and it's just part of my life. And, they even listened to, before that, Elvis and Bill Haley and all that other, Buddy Holly, Dion. So, I mean, it's great. And I just never had the proclivity to play. I mean, I took piano lessons for 7 or 8 years, and I was horrible at it, and I never got any better.
Well, that's too bad.
It is bad because I really, now that, I'm an adult, and I would love to have been, playing keyboards in a band or something like that. I just never, it never clicked with me. I was serviceable, but that was it.
Yeah.
See, and those songs that I brought up to him, those were my influences. The Left Bank, and it was something you had never heard anything like it before.
Yeah, it had like classical, like an
Baroque.
oboe in it,
Yeah.
and then it had like Beach Boyish harmonies, and it was just a whole combination of stuff. It was
Walk
just-
Away, Renee.
Yeah,
Walk Away, Renee. I just like
Great song.
different freaking sounding stuff. And I love the Beatles, don't get me wrong. I loved it, but it was basically an extension from the Everly Brothers and all this other stuff. It didn't hit me as, oh, that's brand new, She Loves You, or I Want to Hold Your Hand. It wasn't I picked really odd songs that I really liked.
That's the beauty of music, though.
Yeah.
still does.
Yeah, you never can figure what's going to float your boat. I was particularly glad that he mentioned Ed Sheeran because, to me, he is fabulous.
And going back to Django Reinhardt, as soon as he said jazz guitar, that's exactly who I thought of, and I like because he's like the bellwether for everything that came after him.
And seriously, I do the blues show on 99plus KFMH.com on Saturday nights, and I hear from people, that message me and crap from England that listen to it on Sunday mornings, and they just when I went over there with my brother, they love the blues, and their top 40 station over there is called Antenna 104. And Wolfgang actually took me to the studios, and they play top 40, but they go back to the 60s to today. And it's all English. Everything over there is English. So they love blues, and they love country. Yeah. And they just do. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was really
neat,
cool.
'cause he's a legend.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of the reviews of the shows, and obviously people don't put, oh, this sucked, but I mean, the guy goes, I was expecting a whole band, and it was just him and his guitar, and I was like really pleasantly surprised how good it was. And another person said he actually played a request for me. So it's pretty loose, and I'm sure every show is different, and it'd be a lot of fun to go check that out. So week from Saturday at the Redstone Room in Davenport in the River Music Experience.
It's amazing because had him and then had the concert with Paul a couple of weeks ago, and that was the best freaking concert I've ever seen in my life. I've been to a lot of concerts, and he just was great. And they both appear to be like normal people. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and he
As normal as you can be with all that fame and stuff, but they do. They appear to be just down to earth people.
Yeah, that was great.
That was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. And to that Baker guy that didn't like the All Hawkeyes thing.
Yeah.
Bite me. I know.
And
stinking badger.
goodbye.
Yeah, a badger.
Goodbye.
We're not going to take,
take credit from no
criticism
stinking badger.
Yeah. Wisconsin. Listen to all Wisconsin.
All badgers all the time.
Okay, well,
cool. That was cool.
That was cool. We'll try to get in some police reports or something when we'll take a break on YouTube. The interview will be up on YouTube, and you'll have it again on 99 Plus KFMH.
Yep, I'll try to put something together in the near future. And
okay,
run it.
Sounds good.